We're here today for Ripples of Success. I'm so pleased to have Cynthia Breadner with us. We are talking today about iteration, and welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited.
So we're talking about what is iteration? We can look up in the dictionary what it is. When we talk about iteration, we're talking about this opportunity to redo things, to add to it, to let it grow organically. And I thought what we might do is start with talking actually about perfection.
Okay.
Because you and I started in the same place, because I've watched you do it and recognized it for myself, where I started thinking everything had to be perfect, right? Everything, I had to do it all perfectly. I didn't want to look foolish. I wanted to look like I had it all together, because that's kind of where you started, right?
Yes. Oh, very much so. Very much so. Yeah, I did start there. I lived there, actually. I lived there, and I'm very proud of my age. I tell my age all the time. You know that. I'm always saying about my age.
Fabulous.
So, I'm 62 years old, just turned in August. And I lived in the paralysis of perfection forever. And I celebrate 4 years sober in January, and that was part of this paralysis of perfection, because I never felt I could measure up, and I would drown it away with my best friend, which was a glass of wine, a bottle of wine, whatever. And I spent a lot of years in that place, and I couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't do it anymore. And part of that, so the iteration, that perfection is so debilitating.
It is. And when we talk about iteration with our students, we talk about the idea of creating and then testing and then adjusting and then putting it back out and then making new adjustments. And this idea that it's never going to be perfect, right? With huge air quotes. It's never going to be perfect the first time, right? Because we actually don't even know how it's going to land for our people yet.
Right.
And
to add on to the word of iteration, we all use the word reiterate.
Right.
We use it regularly. Like, it was funny because when you sent me the request, we're doing this, and I'd like to invite you. I thought, iterate. What is that?
Oh,
funny. What is that word? Iterate. I've never heard of it. It felt unfinished.
Right. Because we talk about reiterate.
Let me reiterate my point, right?
Right.
Well, think about, we've already iterated it. So we need to reiterate. And that brought me into the world again of language. And I know you are very much a linguist. You think about words. Yeah.
Word geeks.
Oh, words are so critical to me. And one of my foremost words that I also bring forward with people is religion.
Right.
Because if you talk about religion, people don't know what it is.
Right.
Because the word ligion or ligir, the root of ligir, means to bind. So when you rebind something, religion is binding you back to something that has been bound before. Cool. So in religion, we bind ourselves back. So when I started looking at this word, thinking like I had to go and look at it. I had to go and look up iterate, and you'd sent me a little thing, and I thought, that's so interesting. I love it. So I like this process of sort of breaking down our words that we use regularly and really truly don't know meanings or don't pay attention.
And it's so interesting that you say that, Cynthia, because it's a word that Karen and I use all the time, because we talk about it in the context of our courses that we create and so on. And so we talk about iteration and the fact that we know we're continuing, we put it out there and then we run it and we see what needs to change. And then we come back and we make the adjustments and we go back out. And this is this process of iteration or reiteration, right? You're creating this. And one of the things that we've seen a lot is that people get paralyzed by this need to have it perfect. And it certainly was my experience at the beginning. I was like, what am I going to do? I've got to have it exactly right. And then I created my first course and realized when I ran it the first time that it wasn't perfect. And it
Yeah.
was okay because it still actually created the result I wanted with my people. And then I went back around and made the changes and I reiterated it and
Yep.
put it back out there in this process. But it's not where we start, right? We start
No.
with this need.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how did the need for perfection, that need to get it right the first time, what problems did that create for you? I know I know how it showed up for me. What
Yeah.
problems did that create for you?
Just, it fed my ego self-doubt. It just, like, that's the thing, is that we all doubt what we're doing. I mean, I watch, and I use my grandsons now a lot as fuel for my fodder as well, because when I watch my baby grandson at 1 year old and watch his processing of iteration, of iterating his life at 1 year old, if he got as doubtful and as discouraged as we do as ego riddled adults, he would stay a baby. He would never move forward, right?
Yeah.
But they don't know to be embarrassed or to be doubtful or to be anything but the best they can be.
And joyful in the process.
And joyful.
Amazing.
Or mad.
Or mad, yes.
Now, and he wants a lid off. I just wrote in my column recently talking about him putting the lid on, taking the lid off of my coffee cup. And he wanted it on, so I put it on. Well, then he'd go, because he couldn't get it off. So what did it do for me as I was living in this world of perfect is it created jealousy, it created self-doubt, it created challenges with my work, it created an apathy,
right,
and a lethargy that I just don't know what I'm doing. And I mean, it's not easy to take those first steps. And I say that because KK and I have been working together now for probably 4 years. And then you and I came on board in that time because I met you through KK.
Yep.
And so we've come together. And I remember my first time meeting you. And do you want to hear what went on in my head?
Sure.
Because you were talking about finances. You were talking about financing and making your budget. And you were sitting in a chair at the front with 2 other women at Sweet Success.
Oh, and on a panel.
On a panel.
Yeah.
And my thoughts were, yeah, right. Isn't she smart? She's already got all her training. Like, you know, I couldn't do that. Like, I could never do that because like she knows everything she's doing already. Right? That was the dialogue in my head.
Wow. Yeah, because we get all up in our heads and we think we've got to have it all together.
Exactly. So when I started with KK and her favorite mantra, and I'm sure if you ask her this is her favorite mantra, she just says, go do it and come back and tell me about the experience.
Yes, which is highly annoying, having been in her classrooms myself. I'm like, tell me, but no,
well, tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. Go do it, have the experience, and come back and tell me what happened.
Yes.
What do you want me to do with this? What? Blah, 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 blah. Go do it, have the experience, and come back and tell me what happened.
Yes.
She just says that like a parrot. Like she could put a little parrot, a pirate's parrot, on a little shelf and just put a recording in it, and then she could just punch a button. That's it, right?
Yes. So when you went and had the experience, how did that change things for you?
It changed things for me because I began to realize that it was through the experience that we could use the pillars of wisdom. It's through the experience that I bring back knowledge of what does or does not work. It's through the experience that I bring back the knowledge that, wow, I might be kind of good at this. Right. It's through the experience that we bring back the knowledge that, oh, that's not what I wanted to do at all.
Not quite the outcome I was looking for, but now you can reiterate.
Reiterate, exactly. So it's this beautiful infinite dance through the pillars of wisdom that began to build everything in our lives on this solid platform. And funny that you mentioned about building your program. I now have the live program about the spiritual education, and I hate it. like, I don't even want to sell it anymore because now I've been out in the world with it since February.
Right.
I'm working with students and I've got people wanting to take the course. Like they've taken it, so now they want their staff to take it.
Yes.
And I'm going, but it's so bad. Okay, yeah, that's right. I'll get
This is exactly it, because when you created it, it was exactly the right thing when you created it. You created this amazing program, you ran it, it was excellent, it created the results you were looking for your people. And now with the feedback, you're ready to go back in and up level it.
and recreate it. Exactly. Reiterate it.
Reiterate it.
But we have to iterate before we can reiterate.
Yes.
So you never, like I had a conversation with one of the other students who's a great friend of mine, and I brought her to KK and she's in the courses and really enjoying them so much. And I'm listening to her because now I'm just that little bit along that linear path further than her, but I can hear me in her responses sometimes. So now as the wisdom teacher, I can ask her questions that nudge her into reiterating her thinking.
Nice.
Right? And being able to restructure how she's putting it out to me because I've experienced where she is.
Yes. Yes. I love that. I love that. And you're so right. It's this opportunity to go and have an experience and come back and ask your questions. And when you come back, you will have way better questions, right? Exactly. When you haven't had the experience yet, then the questions you're asking are all what if questions, like what if this, what if this, what if this. But when you go and have the experience, then you start asking why questions, how questions, what questions.
Exactly.
So you've created this course.
Yep.
You put it out there in the world. It was super well received. It created the results that you were looking for. And now you're like, it's not quite what I want. It's not what I want to be putting out there. And you have this opportunity, and you might come back to this course and redo it. You might do something, new, which is totally up leveled, but it gives you basically went out and had the experience. And now can come back and ask yourself the questions that will allow you to up level it to the next stage.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the thing is that's the other thing that happens with this is that do I want to reiterate that course or do I want to leave it exactly as it is, just let it be, and then take all of the different spokes that came off of that?
Yes. Right.
And begin to grow it as opposed to just taking it down and making another one.
Exactly.
And that's the other, I love it.
You never have known that was possible if you hadn't put the first one out and had the experience.
I would have never known that out of, and I love our visuals that we have in our masterclass that we're working on right now, where we got the value in the middle and then all the spokes for the beliefs, the B's. And I look at that and I think, so my course that I launched in January, that was done, is the core of all of these spokes that came off of that. And now I've got to sit down and seriously look at which of these spokes do I want to develop further and which are really not of interest to me? Which ones are like, what is it that feels good that came out of this course? What did I learn about this that I went, oh, that's not really where I'm going with that?
Well, this is it too, is sometimes, like I remember saying years ago, I feel like I don't have any ideas unless I say them out loud. And the person I was working with at the time said, it's by hearing yourself say it that you can hear whether it's truth or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For me, I need to get it out of my mouth and hear it come back to me to know, am I on the right track? Am I doing the right thing? And so if I just end up all up in my own head and I'm not speaking it or writing it or creating it, then it actually has no opportunity to grow.
Right. Exactly.
Years ago, I said to somebody, perfect is actually a closed loop.
Yep.
It's a closed loop. There's nowhere to grow from perfect. So I actually have zero desire now to get anywhere near perfect, because how fun is that? Not having anywhere to grow.
Right, right. And I also, over the years, working as a spiritual provider and doing leadership in spiritual work that I do, the other analogy that I would always say to people is we go to the garden store and we buy a package of seeds.
Right.
And we bring the package of seeds home and we throw them on top of the fridge.
Yep.
So there's the package of seeds. It's on top of the fridge. How many tomatoes are you going to get to eat out of that package of seeds? The package of seeds is not going to grow itself. It needs to be nurtured and brought out in the open. And because those seeds are not tomatoes, they are potential.
Yes.
They are pregnant with potential that they can be tomatoes if we treat them the proper and right way, by planting them in fertile soil, by watering them, by taking care of them, by growing them, by encouraging them. But part of it is still up to something that's out of our control. Whatever you want to call it, I don't care what people call it, but when I plant those seeds and put the water on them, I'm trusting that something out there is going to give me some results as well that I can then work with, right? But as long as we throw those seeds on top of the fridge and leave them in the package, they're not going to do anything. So when we've got seeds running around in our head, that's like them being on top of the fridge.
Yeah.
Until we get them out there, plant them in people to say, this is my seeds.
Yeah.
What can you grow from this? Oh my God, this person grew turnips from my seeds.
I love that. And
You know?
as you were talking, Cynthia, what I thought of was how much better the tomatoes grow when we cut back the suckers and the extra foliage. And if we cut back the things, like once the plant is doing really well, and then we prune it back, the stuff that now that we've seen the potential and the growth and it's so beautiful, and we say, you know what, if I took this out and that out and this out, then I'm going to get bigger tomatoes, I'm going to get more up. And then all of that stuff goes back into the compost. Right. To grow again another day. Oh, it's such a good analogy. I love that.
I know. It's a wonderful analogy.
It's so true. And, you know, the reason that I specifically reached out to talk to you about this topic, Cynthia, is because, well, I've recognized when I was watching you create your course, I recognized what had happened with me, this like, woo, about, you know, wanting it to be perfect. And then the beauty of the relaxing into it and the willingness to just do it. And, you know, I loved watching, you did a couple of your videos in like a local school ground or park or something. And I was like, oh, those are so fun. And you just played with the fact that the sun was going behind the clouds, and you really allowed yourself to be your whole self. And you wouldn't have done that a couple of months earlier when you started that process.
And that I'm going to tell you that was totally self-driven in the sense that I needed to figure out my best opportunity to do the videos.
Right.
And that's where a lot of the students struggle, because Karen does them, set up at her desk, and she does them, and that's her comfort zone.
Sure.
That's where she's comfortable. Your videos might be different. For me, to get that iteration and be able to pull something together, I knew I worked best off the cuff.
Yep.
And in a airy environment. So that's why I took my first few classes and my intro video for the course. My daughter came with me and we went out to the local Scanlon Conservation, and I had little slips of paper that she held right beside the camera so that I could look right at the camera and be able to read them. And they were short little clips. Because that was the other thing, Karen, is that I was trying to do an entirety of a video from start to finish until I was iterating and getting it out there and having Karen KK say, why don't you do 2 or 3 of them and then clip them and put them all together? I was like, what?
I could do that?
What are you talking about? Well, that's what I did then. I went out and I must have had 30 minutes of footage,
Yes.
of which that I linked down to 2 minutes of an intro video that faded itself into it by talking to KK and learning how to use the video editor and how to, and all of these are iterations because I didn't know how to do them before.
Right.
So until I iterate them the first time and do and get feedback, I can't reiterate anything.
Exactly. I love that. I love that, Cynthia. It's so true. You know, we our magnificent reception person, Rebecca, we had asked her to create a 1-minute video introducing the Big Blue Door. And it's the first time she had done that kind of video before. And it took her about 2.5 hours to create this 1-minute interview. She did like a zillion iterations of it. And we got it, and then she and I edited it all up, and it was awesome. And then I was showing it to KK, and we realized that the background was backwards. It was like mirror imaged.
Okay.
And we couldn't fix it because of the way that the video worked. And so I sent her a message. I'm like, so your video was awesome, and you have to redo it. And the next day she redid it. It took her 35 minutes. Because she had gone through the learning, the experience, that opportunity to just go and have an experience. And now she had learned so much of it. She was able to come back in and just, it was easy.
I know.
Love it. This has been such a great conversation, Cynthia. I really wanted to explore this topic, and I wanted to sort of come to it from this place of, you know, where both of us were in this sort of cycle of trying to be perfect, and then really learning not only to be willing to iterate and reiterate, but to actually really lean into it and love it and enjoy it and actually look for it. And that's been such a big difference for me.
I agree totally. Because again, it's the fear that we hold in looking silly or being seen as a failure.
Yes.
I know Mary Kay Ash, who founded Mary Kay Cosmetics in 1963, her saying was, you fail forward to success. And it's a huge thing. And so you're right, to embrace it. And as we laugh now, because Danielle, my daughter, is always laughing at me because I say that KK has taught me to say awkward.
Absolutely, because it's going to be awkward.
To take joy in that awkward feeling of, you know, not being able to do something perfect the first time is awkward. And when we can laugh at ourselves at being awkward and then embrace that as we do it, like with Magnificent Rebecca saying the next day that she did in 35 minutes what took her 2 hours the day before,
right.
You know, it's embracing that newness, that freshness, that I'm willing to step out.
You started off by saying that, you know, one of the things that was the challenge for you around perfection was doubt. And what I'm hearing from you is the iteration, actually, the willingness to iterate and reiterate is actually that's how you actually get out of doubt, is the willingness to just go and play with this opportunity to just put it out there and see what happens.
I totally agree. Because when you doubt, it's your ego protecting you.
Yeah.
It's your ego saying to you, ooh, we don't want to look foolish, so I think you should just stay at home. Yeah. We don't want to look silly. We don't want to be seen as not being able to do it. So when you say to your ego, it's okay, I got this, then that begins to build the confidence. So
Cynthia, thank you so much for coming to talk to me today. This was such a great conversation, and I'm always happy to have you in our world. You're such a great cheerleader for us, and you always have such great insights.
Thank you, Karen. And I love the big blue door. I love your concept with all of that, and I'm so excited to be a part of it. And I always feel like I've arrived when the KK team include me. And so it's, you know, because I've never been interdependent before. I've never allowed people to see that I need it.
Yeah.
people to say, we're glad you're here. And now I look for that. I look for people to say, we're glad you're here. And so as I iterate, this morning, I have an appointment at 11 o'clock this morning to go to a local place here to iterate a whole new program that I'm going to pull out of my hat and see how it lands on the table and see what they're looking for. So that's kind of exciting too.
Fabulous. Well, we'll look forward to hearing about it. Thanks so much, Cynthia.
You're welcome, Casey.